The ancient secrets of the Far East draw in throngs of would-be practitioners of a mystifying martial art. Hi, I'm Garrett K. Jones, and for the second author interview of the month, I'm talking with Lewis Martin, author of the highly reviewed cautionary tale, The True Believers.
I try to make new content every week, so don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube.
Happy weekend. Before I get into the interview, I want to let you all know that you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at GKJ_publishing using the hashtag 5Kingdoms. I'm constantly posting and interacting with followers, and it's a great opportunity to make connections with as many people as possible. Alright, so let's kick it off. Hi-ya! Hey Lewis, thanks for doing the interview. So what is The True Believers about?
Hey Garrett, thanks for featuring me on your author interview. So to answer your question, what is The True Believers about? I suppose the headline version is it is a true story about a group of martial artists that evolved into a cult over a period of several years. But of course, the actual story, it's 60,000 words long, is much more nuanced than that. And me as the author, I tried to give the story the respect it deserved and all the players and characters in it the respect that they all deserve, because obviously if people knew they were in a cult, they would probably leave, right? So for the people that were there, including myself, there was a lot of gray area and it was difficult to tell during the time, but the farther away I get from it, the more I realized that it was a very dysfunctional group and we had a lot of sort of codependencies, and I think it's fair to call it a cult, and I leave it up to the reader to decide, though.
What prompted you to write The True Believers?
So what prompted me to write The True Believers was after I exited this group after over 7 years in it, I think, in 2006 to 2014. I was, disillusioned. I was very upset, and I feel like a number of people in the group, not necessarily including myself in all these things, but people were exploited, financially exploited. I feel like there was emotional abuse, and I feel like there were other really serious forms of abuse that happened, and that when myself and other sort of senior people in the martial art brought it forward, we were essentially asked to leave, or we were kind of allowed to leave. And I came to a point in time where I realized that there would be no repercussions for the people that were in charge and that were leading this, and they would simply, leave town, set up shop somewhere else, and do it all again. And ever since I was a kid, I've had this sort of I call it the righteous rage that I get, which is when I feel like something is just morally wrong that's happening, I tend to become really active and have a motivation to, fix it or rectify it some way. And to me, I just knew that the only way that would happen is if the story was told and told widely. So wrote the book, published it, and that was sort of the driving force that kept me going for the year and a half that it took to write and edit and publish it.
What is your martial arts background?
So my martial arts background, obviously when the book begins, maybe it's not obvious, but when the book begins, I am just stepping into a dojo for the first time. And then over 7 years, I got 3 black belts in Japanese martial arts. I have a black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And then I have 2 others. I have a black belt in a martial art called Taijutsu, Bujinkan Taijutsu. And then a third one in something called Bato Jitsu, which has to do with drawing and cutting the traditional Japanese sword. Since then, I've kind of gone on. Today, I consider myself kind of an all-around submission grappler. I have a lot of experience with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've really started to dive more into no-gi grappling, catch wrestling, those kind of things. I never stopped doing martial arts, even throughout this whole process, which did kind of sour me on certain aspects of it, but I still am training 2-3 nights a week.
So what kind of martial art is Seibukan?
So Seibukan Jiu-Jitsu was the martial art that I trained in mainly, and it is can be easily described as like a form of Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. It's very traditional, and you learn a lot about Japanese sort of language and customs and traditions and superstitions. And in that sense, it's very similar to other traditional martial arts. There's kata, there's some like live drilling, weapon work, a lot of that stuff. What was different about Seibukan was that there was a very strong aspect of like self-help within it. Very much like you'd see in one of these sort of pseudo new age religions. Like, I hate to use Scientology because that's, a completely different thing. But just for the sake of something that people can relate it to, I would say that it had a very strong self-help aspect, similar to what you would see in Scientology. And the form that took in martial arts was that as you progressed through the ranks and got your black belt and your next black belt, there was this expectation set that you would be able to sort things out in your life. And that created this thing where a black belt wasn't just like an indicator of your martial skill level, but it was also supposedly an indicator of just like how much you had your stuff together and how sort of enlightened and wise you were. And it created a sort of feedback loop with us that we were always trying to get the next belt because we thought that it would fix us, basically. And there were a lot of kind of lost, broken people that wandered in there, and they used our martial arts school as like a substitute for therapy or maybe serious help that they needed. And they thought that this would have the answer. And then like the highest level, this really took the form of like a religion, and we had like a lot of religious imagery and symbols with things like animal worship and memorizing concepts and a bunch of jargon, and then ultimately kind of glorifying our leader to the point where he was like a pseudo deity to us. I mean, we attributed a lot of sort of magical spiritual powers to him that he didn't have. And all of this cost money, it's tens of thousands of dollars that people spent and I spent over a period of that time. And I think it was really exploitative because at the end of the day, I don't think we had a whole lot to show for all that money that we spent. And I don't think we came out of it as fundamentally better people in a lot of cases.
What was one of the biggest challenges in writing this particular book?
So the hardest challenge with writing this book was writing it in a way that was respectful to all the different players, respectful to myself, and even respectful to some of the what you consider the antagonists in the book. And I wanted to tell the story in a way that sort of let the readers decide. And reading some of the reviews on things like Amazon, a lot of people have commented that they thought that I was pretty fair to all the players, and just letting their actions speak for themselves. That was really important to me. I didn't want this book to feel exploitative or to feel like I was, profiting off other people's pain and other people's experiences. And I've had, many, many people that were there and present for all these events contact me after this book was published and express gratitude and just recognition that they thought the story was well told and that it was accurate.
What are you doing now that the book is published?
So writing this book has sort of like launched my writing career, and it's allowed me to quit my job, be a full-time writer. I am writing professionally now. I write for a company called Sandoval Sports. I manage like their blog, and then I write a lot of the content on their websites. I work really closely with a site called Grappling Insider, help someone with their content. I'm a contributor for the Jiu-Jitsu Times. I was the managing editor for ujujitsu.com for a while. I really enjoyed that job. And I still write, and I still have kind of other books in the works. But martial arts writing has sort of become my wheelhouse, and I'm even going to be featured in like a print magazine in the month of probably September, and that'll be my first like print writing credit. So I love writing and I love martial arts. Now I get to do both.
What advice would you have for other would-be authors?
I love this question about what advice would I give to writers and other obstacles, and I've thought about this a lot. I think my advice to writers is to understand that writing takes place in different phases. And what I mean by that is that everyone knows about the writing phase where you're grinding out, you're trying to write the book. But what people often underestimate, what I've underestimated, is I'd say there's three other processes. One, there's the editing process. which takes a long time. It can take almost as long as it takes to write the book itself. It's so much more than just like proofreading and spell checking. So really respect the editing process and learn to love it, because that's when an average book could become a great book. After that is the publishing phase, where you have an entirely new skill set. Now you have to think about licensing rights, distribution, purchasing your own ISBN, what platforms you're going to make your book available on. And that's something that really can scare a lot of writers, but again, it's something that you have to learn to love. And then there's the marketing process, which is, one of the hardest ones. And now you're thinking about advertising and, going on podcasts and shows like this. And I think the trap with new writers is to get really comfortable with writing and then just act like you don't want to do anything else. But the modern writer, especially if you're independently published, like, you have to be a marketer, you have to be an editor, you have to be a cheerleader for your book, you have to be a businessman, and really take the time to get good at all those different things, because that's the difference between a successful book and just a book that you wrote.
A big thank you goes out to Lewis Martin for participating in the second interview for Author Awareness August. Lewis is a friend of mine from college, and I had the opportunity and pleasure to train with and learn from him. And having read through his book, The True Believers, I can tell you that it is worth reading. I picked it up on Kindle and finished it within 2 days, and there aren't many books that can get me to do that, and I read a lot. If you're interested in picking up his work, you can find The True Believers on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle formats. And you can learn more about him from his own website. Both links are in the description below. Next week, Author Awareness August continues, and I'll have dark romance author Riley Rett discussing her book, Swallow the Pain. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment below. If you're interested in sponsoring more videos like this, you can support me on Patreon by clicking the link in the description, where you'll have a choice of 3 support tiers, ranging from $1 per month to $5 per month. Each tier provides 24 hours early access to the vlogs, plus other sweet perks. Don't forget to subscribe to GKJ Publishing and the Vlog of the 5 Kingdoms by clicking the button to my right. By clicking either of the buttons to my left, you can watch last week's interview with author Caitlin Brooke, or you can stream the entire Author Awareness playlist. Have a great weekend.